So, Dakota Mays, welcome to the show.
What's up, Harley? How we doing?
Doing great. So, what first got you interested in yoga? Tell me about that story.
I was in college. I've only been doing yoga, fun fact, for like 6 years maybe. I think I was 20. I was in college. My girlfriend at the time just was like, hey, let's do some yoga. I was like, all right, for sure. It's just something I did casually, handstands, just having fun with it. Next thing you knew, I'm a junior and I'm dropping out of school, and like yoga is the only thing there for me, like mentally too, not just physically. And then I just trusted it. And I was like, oh, might as well just go do a teacher training in Bali. Because even if I don't want to teach, I'm gonna, deepen my practice and have fun with this thing that was really like grounding me at the time that I didn't know what I was doing in life. We never know what we're doing in life, but I really didn't know what I was doing at that point. And it was just there for me. So yeah, after a couple of years of practicing yoga, when I was 22, I went to Bali, did my teacher training, and then next thing you know, I come back, I'm teaching full time. So it's just like been my main thing that I do for my, my career and my personal, my favorite hobby still, just to connect to myself. It was just like, yeah, from there it was off to the races. Nothing but
Sure.
yoga since.
Why do you think it grounds you? Explain what that might mean.
A lot of it comes from the breath work, man. So people don't realize the main benefits from yoga come from the simplest poses and just being connected with your breath. So, inhaling when you're coming up in a pose or a movement, exhaling when you're forwarding in a pose with a movement. Like you connect to your breath with those movements. That's what the word vinyasa means, like connecting breath with movement. So what I teach is vinyasa yoga, flow yoga. Vinyasa also means flow. So, but you're flowing with breath. Like that is true vinyasa. And if you lose breath, like you lost it. It's still good for the body, moving and everything. But like the main gym goers, gym rats, will say your breath is everything. You know what I mean? When you get to the nitty gritty of like, just trying to get the best out of every rep, out of every movement, out of every flow, whatever you're doing. Whatever your personal movement journey is like. But especially if it's yoga, like connecting your breath with your movement, that's the golden ratio. It just grounds you. It makes you feel okay. Calms your nervous system. Helps so much with blood pressure and everything you can possibly think of. All 11 systems of the body literally is enhanced by moving with your breath. It doesn't have to be yoga, but like, of course we're talking about yoga, but just this could be like simple stuff, like breathing fully while you're walking your dog. Like that could be all you need. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So, connecting breath with movement. So, an example would be, like you said, walking and taking a deep breath. What other examples? I'm not certain what you mean connecting movement and breath.
Yeah. So I just mean like walking was just like a simple example, just because everyone wants to know like yoga is anything you make it, right? Anything can be a grounding way of connecting, because yoga just means connection, like union with like everything around you. So that could be literally anything, man. But say you're at the gym, you're doing your reps or something. Exhale maybe on the when you're exploding up or doing whatever explosive movement you're doing. You do an exhale, then inhale when you're regrouping. Exhale, just like it makes that connection to where like even if like you could do it back off, you could do it the opposite way too. Like you could play with your breath however you want to, but just connecting your breath, it just makes the practice more mindful, and you're much more connected to whatever you're doing with your body. It's all physiology. Like I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. Everything is physiology. I'm telling you. That's why like I make some of these posts about letting go of like repressed emotions and stored emotions in the hips. And people are always like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, what does this mean?" I'm like, "Well, if you look at nature in any aspect, if say uh, whatever type of deer in the wild makes it away from an encounter where it was life endangering, right? But it made it away. It shakes off that stress, even though it just ran. So it just ran to save its life, ran as hard as it could. Its nervous system, fight or flight. It went flight hard. It's not fighting that lion, right? It's flying hard. It's fighting. So once it's done with that, even still, it's still some energy in the body. Those hormones, those stress hormones, are still in the body. And the strongest part of the body is what? The hips. So your body really sends those hormones to the hips, everything it needs, everything you need to jump the highest you've ever jumped, run the fastest you've ever jumped, do everything, fight to death, like literally. And that's what our nervous system does too. So when we're in stressful situations, though, just like nature, we're not running. We're not like letting it go. We're not like moving through that stress. We're just this stressed little ball, this little ball of stress in our little cubicle or wherever you're at, or it could be home, it could be anything, anywhere, right? But we're not letting go. So if you go through some stress, shake it out. Go for a run. The best thing you can do is go to the gym. Freaking press some heavy weights if you're a guy. Like if you're really down and out, move through your body. That's like I couldn't stress that enough.
That's awesome. I never even thought about shaking it off, or I guess
Literally
taking a
shake.
run, or
Yeah. Even
yeah.
shake it. Like when you're at your desk, shake your arms. Like when you feel stressed out from work, I do it all the time. Like I just stand up. I'm standing most of the time, but especially when you're sitting a lot, we're working, we're getting stressed out. We're in this, I think, beta brainwave state when we're just like kind of stressed all the time. Like we're focused. There's nothing wrong with beta wave. I think it's beta brainwave. But anyways, that's where it's kind of like, a little bit fast. We're concentrated, focused. We're working usually. Just getting up, even with that stress, because that's a subtle level of stress that, if prolonged, you need to move every day, right? But if you're not really moving every day, you need to make it a point to like at least get out of your desk, shake your body. If you're not going to go to the gym for a hard hour and a half, whatever it is, or a yoga flow, whatever it is for you, at least just shake the body. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna definitely start doing that. And
Yeah.
so, talk about your favorite yoga positions. What would you recommend to a beginner?
So beginner, this is another one. It depends on what you're wanting out of yoga. Say if you're just wanting to calm down before bed. That's why I feel like most people are really liking the content I make. That's super chill. If you're calming down before bed, just hop on the ground, or even in your bed. Hop into child pose. Just breathe into child pose, breathe into your lower stomach, and try to get past 7 seconds on the inhales and 7 seconds on the exhales. That's a really good way to really signal your nervous system to be like, hey, time to relax, and it slows your heart rate down. And for, if you're really trying to keep it simple, just restorative yoga before bed, put your legs up the wall and put a cushion under your hips to where your hips are now above your heart. So it's a passive inversion. Another great way to just passively slow down your heart rate, improve your lymphatic system, do everything that your body wants. And again, that slow 7-second breathing into your stomach, you're going to be falling asleep in that pose before you even turn around to get your head on your pillow. So I do this all the time, and I don't need any help going to sleep. I'm out, but I just do it for, lymphatic boost, low connection, a little meditation. It doesn't have to be hardcore, like 5 minutes. But that's like the best bedtime yoga that I could like prescribe to anyone. But then say you're one to wake up in the mornings and wake up your body, I would recommend first off, a lot of people get the misconception of like stretching versus mobility. Mobility is where you can mobilize your body without like help. Like I can pull my elbow and chest open this much right now. But if I were to push against the wall, I could go further. I could bend back. But that's flexibility. If I was using the wall to help me go. But right now I'm mobile enough to go to this range of motion, right? So that's your mobility. I would just work on mobility in the mornings. So whatever your body can naturally do in a range of motion, I wouldn't hardcore try to stretch yourself out, because that's where you're gonna, pull some stuff. You're the coldest in the morning, you just not where you want to get your deepest stretches unless you're really doing a full flow. And towards the end, you're really obviously warmed up. You have to be warmed up before you do any deep stretching yoga. So in the morning, I always tell people to do your simple mobility work, do some hip circles, do some spine circles, do your cat cow, like just the simplest stuff, like do some up dog, down dog, up dog to child pose, like just stuff to open up your hips and close them, like just opens up the main joints of the body, which is obviously the hips and shoulders. Once you do that, your spine, every vertebrae is a joint. So just playing around with all of your joints in the morning. That's why I prescribe to anyone. And all my channel is literally just small little movements where you can pick and choose which ones you want. Just do a few. It's just so simple. And then the last thing I would add to where we're talking about yoga for beginners, right? So I did before bed, when you're waking up. So say you're doing a middle day yoga and you're trying to get a little workout. I would definitely do some vinyasa flow, like do a vinyasa flow to you where you're working your muscles now and you're doing the stretching, like I was saying before, to avoid in the mornings most time. Just do an actual flow to where it's hard for me to like tell you a flow right now because there's so many different, moves and poses. But just do your general sun salutations. So that's where you're standing, inhale, reach up, exhale, fold down. Inhale, come halfway back up. Exhale, go down to your low push-up. Inhale, come up into your up dog. Then exhale, go back down to your down dog. and then inhale, come back. It's just like that. So you're doing that, and you can come back to standing, and then you can throw in some warrior poses in there using your legs. But just keep it simple. I have tons of beginner flows on my YouTube. But if you're looking for beginner flows, just go to a YouTube channel, someone that you like, nice little 10, 15-minute flow that's nice, easy or intermediate, whatever it is. That's what I would recommend.
That's awesome. I will definitely check that out. Your Instagram page is a true wealth of knowledge when it comes to all of this, which is awesome. But so
Thank you.
tell me about your yoga retreats. I hear you host some.
Yeah. So most of the yoga retreats I'm hosting right now are intimacy and yoga. So it's a new little twist that I've been doing lately. It's my business partner. She's into tantra yoga, so she's a relationship coach. She's an intimacy coach, and she came into my life like right when I went through a breakup like 8 months ago. So it was just like perfect how it worked out, and I'm just really passionate about this stuff. So that's how that came to be. But then my other ones are just yoga. But I only have one of those right now, and it's up in like we're gonna be like a week and a half from now. So don't really worry about that. It's kind of too late to book in. But in the future, you never know. But yeah, I just really miss teaching in person. And of course, I'm teaching like mostly online now with what I do and the videos that I do, to where it's either like an in-person workshop or a retreat, So I was like, man, I really want to get in the retreat space because I want to like connect with people again. So that was the biggest main reason why I like wanted to get into the retreat space. And just like, hosting a week for someone that's like completely transformational, and I get to involve my yoga and my body work into it all. Like that's a dream come true to me. So yeah, we're hosting intimacy and yoga retreats to help people like find their own balance, energy inside of themselves, like the polarity inside of themselves, let alone like interpersonal relationships or friendships, like finding the polarity balance in those. Because polarity, in my humble opinion, is a freaking law now. The more I learn about tantra yoga, the more I learn about polarity. Opposites attract, and it's a law. It's like an unspoken law of the universe, like gravity. You know what I mean? It's
Explain what that means, maybe.
so. Trying to do a nice analogy. So the reason why polarity helps you in life, because if your polarity is off in your relationships, your life is just hard. There's traction, right? Because we want opposites attract. We just want a nice, like, we're a nice relationship or friendship or whatever it is, whatever you're talking about. It could be with you and your pet. It could be anything. There's polarity everywhere, right? But let's just talk about relationships in this sense. If your polarity is way whacked off, you're going to have a hard relationship. You can make it work, but it's hard. So what that means is if I'm a very masculine dude, I'm going to want a very feminine woman. And that's me personally. Like I love femininity so much in a woman. Like I love it. Can like say my girlfriend, can she show display masculine traits? Of course. Yeah. Like, I like a woman boss too, but for most part, I like a super feminine woman. So if she was more on the realm of like, woman boss, like wanting to be in her masculine roles, I'm not into that. So I've already learned that, and I know that like for fact. And the more it comes on that tips on that scale, like say she's in more in your masculinity, nothing's wrong with that. Like shit, you can be whatever you want. Like as a guy or girl, you know what I mean? You could be masculine or feminine. Doesn't matter. We know we get to pick. But in my life, I like the super feminine. So maybe you're a dude out there and you're like kind of more in your feminine. Like you're like super feminine. You're not really that masculine. You're gonna want a masculine chick that can kind of take role, that can kind of take, kind of tell you what to do, and you like it. Like I don't like that. Like I like to be the leader of my relationship. So it's like finding what you want in yours. Everyone's is gonna be different. Everyone's dream relationship or friendships. Again, this comes back to friendships too. But it's different, obviously, because in a relationship, you really want the sexual polarity. Me and you can both be super masculine. We don't need that sexual polarity to keep us in a friendship. We can both be super masculine and have a great friendship. But is that making sense?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So it's just all energy at the end of the day. Like knowing more about yourself, like introspect. That's where yoga comes in. Like really grounding yourself and like knowing who you are, not what the world made you be. And then when it comes to whenever you want the right, especially relationships we're talking about right now, it can help you really find what you want.
That's awesome.
And what you need, like what's more like synergistic with your relationship. So that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Speaking of introspection, what do you think has been the most useful tool for introspection? Would that be breath work, yoga, psychedelics, discussions? What do you think is a combination? Or tell me about that.
Well, you just said all the main ones for sure. But yeah, I think it comes down to it's the breath work in my personal practice. Like if I'm by myself, you can do a yoga flow and still get in your little trance. You can still feel good. But if your breath is not there, if you're not really fully breathing with every movement, like your breath is the main thing. Like my breath is a posture. You know what I mean? It's like, say you're coming up, you got your 4 second, 5 second inhale, and you're coming up in a pose. Like most people are too worried about their physical body. You know what I mean? When really, like, your alignment doesn't have to be perfect. Come on, get up there. Like, feel the energy coming up as you're coming up in that pose. Like, feel it. And if you're not feeling it, you're too worried. Like, oh, my left foot was like a little crooked. Like, oh, I gotta fix that. And by the time you're fixing that, like, you're exhaling, coming down to your chaturanga. Like, you need to be connected. Like, just move your body, and the precise alignment will come in time. Like, you'll flow like some of these yogis just look like effortless. They're like, ah. Like that's all cool, but it doesn't really matter. So you can still find that trance state, but the breath is what really I found my best, like going inward and really feeling like, the universe type shit. It's the breath work, man. And then my breath work where I'm just lying on the ground doing some intense hyperventilative, like, Wim Hof style breath work. Oh man, some of those breath retentions for me, I've had my deepest, like, uh what do you call it, like death moments, like, where you just feel like nothing's nothing, like nothing is, you're just like in a void almost. It's like you're dead. You lose your ego. That's what the yogis would say. You dissolve your ego, which no one's truly dissolved your ego, but I've had moments where I felt like nothing at all matters, like kind of like, it's a mix, it's going to be different for everyone, but like kind of like nihilist, like nothing matters, like nothing is anything, or everything is everything. Like words can't describe the things that I felt, but it just felt like it just is. Like there's no words that can like label like what you feel or whatever. It just is. But anyways, my deepest moments have been on breath retention. So at the bottom of an exhale. And the reason why I say my quote unquote death moments is because it's at the bottom of the exhale. So when you come into this world, you're taking an inhale. And when you leave this world, you end on an exhale. So you do your breath works and you hold at the bottom of an exhale, you'll feel different, right? So if you do breath retention, you hold your breath on top of an inhale, which most people do. I'm about to go underwater. They pull in oxygen. It's a completely different state. You're stressing your body out in different ways when you don't have any oxygen. It makes your body fight for oxygen. The rest, like, it's just great. So breath retentions on the bottom of exhale, I've had my deepest experiences with. But then I can go to say I've had deeper experiences though on mushrooms. But they all help. But one, it's like, dang, if I just take anywhere over a gram of mushrooms, dude, and I do any of this breath work or I do anything, it's just like talk about what's the ego again? Like I don't even know how to spell ego. It's like it's gone. So it's like if you've had psychedelic experiences, obviously. So if you know what I'm like, if you know, right? So same thing with the breath. You're completely sober, it's a different feeling, but if you know, you know. On the shrooms, I can talk to this with more people understanding exactly where I'm coming from, because it's easy, pop shrooms, and boom, you're like, you don't even know what ego is, and it's not because you like tried to, it's just because you were thrown into that mix. Breath work, I can talk to less people who've had crazy experiences, like dropping your ego and really like in their terms understanding the universe more. You get less experiences like that, but obviously people who do a lot of breath work, you can have those talks. And that takes me to the last one. So you said talking with other people. I think that's what really just like, because like, me just seeing you understanding what I'm saying right now, like we're not alone. We're all having these experiences. We are having different crazy experiences, but we're not alone. You know what I mean? What would
Yeah,
you say? I think I
exactly. Yeah, like it's so interesting because we live in this world or this society where it's like there's so many people that are depressed, anxious, etc. But it's like there's these simple tools that don't seem to be utilized. One being breath. It's like who would have guessed that just breathing in certain ways or exhaling out fully or hyperventilating could really get you into a state that, de-stresses you, removes your ego, helps you introspectively analyze yourself. Yeah, or maybe eating a plant or two. Like it's like who would have ever guessed? It just kind of goes back to like before all of this technology and before this society, it's like people were living simply. They were breathing, they were exercising, they were talking, they might have been eating, some plants. And it's honestly optimistic for me because I see so many people that are depressed. And I'm like, honestly, just take a few minutes to breathe. Maybe take a deep dive into psychedelics, do some research on that, try to get a deep connection with someone by talking, and maybe try some yoga. It's amazing that you can really enhance your life just through some simple things. It doesn't take a complex, you don't have to read X amount of books or, have a ton of money. It's like that has nothing to do with it. It's all about how you're feeling inside. And I just love this. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I can see it on your face. Yeah, I love it too. It's back to Tony Robbins. He's one of my favorite because he's also deep into tantra too. So if you listen to how he talks now that I brought up polarity to you, he brings up polarity with everything. He's like one of my role models. He's like a fellow lion, of him just like roaring at the universe, like waking up the world in his own way. I love him. But anyways, he talks about change of state. So it's like the only reason you're feeling what you're feeling right now, or at any moment in your life, is because of the state of your nervous system, right? We have the ability to change our state like this with our nervous system. So our autonomic nervous system is like breathing, our heart rate, our digestion, things that are going to happen no matter what. You don't have to concentrate on digesting your breakfast right now. Your body's doing it. You don't have to concentrate on breathing right now. Your body's going to do it. You don't have to concentrate on how fast or slow your heart rate needs to be. Your body's doing it for you. But if we can tap into those automatic functions and make them, take control of the steering wheel, like our breath, we get to change our state. Like quite literally, you backwards engineer. So you change your breath. And next thing you know, your nervous system's adapting what you're doing. You get your body upside down, do some inversions, your blood state's changing, your heart rate's adapting what you're doing. You know what I mean? So these autonomic nervous system functioning, like we can tap into them and change our state. So that's what it comes down to. And whether it's yoga, breath work, shaking your body, putting a smile on your face, like all these things are signaling to our body, hey, this isn't the state we're in. We're in this state. Even though you're depressed as shit, we got a smile on our face. We just did some breath work. We just gave some hug. We just gave a kiss to our dog. Like, nah, you're not depressed anymore. Like, change that state. Like, I'm not like here to like sound like, like insensitive or whatever. But like at the end of the day, I'm an insensitive person, even for myself. Like, I don't feel pity for myself either. So I'm
Sure.
talking more for myself.
But you also are somewhat sensitive by giving advice that truly does help depression. These kinds of tactics have such weight. And so it's like, I think you are sensitive in a sense. It's like you're giving practical solutions to depression. You're not just washing it away. You're like, hey, you know, this has really worked for me. So check it out. I love
Yeah.
that. And I saw this post, I think it was yours, where you were like, getting upside down forces the blood to rush to your brain. And I forget what it does, but explain why that might be useful.
So getting the blood, it's mainly to the heart and brain, both. But a lot of it's the heart. So you slow down the heart, so you actually get more blood to the heart. So what this does is your lymphatic system, for instance, and the word lymph just means water. I'm pretty sure. So it's like fluids. Like, so those little devices where you blow up a balloon, but like it doesn't like release. You can just and it blows them up, but like the air doesn't go the other way. The air only goes one way, so you can blow it up
Okay.
and take intervals between your blowing. That little like channel thing is the same thing for our lymphatic system. So it can only go down. So it can't come back up because gravity. So we have to, with gravity, pull it upward to our our head, to our heart and head. Does that make sense? So whether you're doing movements where you're folding up and down, like you're lubricating all your fascia, of course that's gonna stimulate all your lymphatic system. But just getting upside down will help that, from constantly. It'll help it, deflate the balloon a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. So the lymphatic system is the main part of the immune system. So that's why it's super important, right? So we're helping our body heal. So all of our lymph nodes you hear about, once you do this stuff, your lymph nodes get all this garbage in your body pretty much, and then exposes it. I'm pretty sure it's through your pee. That's how your lymph nodes do it, or your breath. No, I'm not sure. I don't think your breath. No. I think you're pee. But anyways, doesn't matter. It's cleaning out your body, right? So that's one of the main benefits of doing something like that, getting the blood up. And then another one is so your lungs are used to fluids being at the bottom. So whenever you give your lungs a little change of gravity, brings the fluids to the top and helps you find more lung capacity. There's a lot of studies into that. I've read deep into that. So you got that, and then you got your blood, just like so. You can call it prana, energy, chi, blood. You could call it like physical things, like all this energy. Blood is energy, right? All this energy is now coming up to our higher chakras. So you're stimulating your higher glands. So that's one of the biggest benefits too. So if you're trying to, yoga, this tantra, this kundalini, all this stuff we're talking about at the end of the day is like raising our vibration, right? Raising our energy up from our hips to our higher chakras. These higher glands are functioning, especially where we see our, our intuition, stuff like that, like the higher states of like consciousness. It helps stimulate those areas. So if you're looking at it from like science perspective, like you are quite literally physically stimulating them with new energy. So if you look at it from an energetic standpoint, like a yogi standpoint, it's like, oh, to give our chakras a little boost. You know what I mean? Just like a little pump up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. That's interesting because I've heard some people explain chakras, but never as good as you just did. Like where it's like, a lot of our energy might be in our hips or in maybe the lower chakras, but getting upside down or getting in these positions or forcing you to exhale, it will tap into different parts of yourself that you wouldn't have recognized. And I honestly have not done much yoga because I came from this small community of like Christians who were like, yoga is kind of a Buddhist tradition, so you should probably shy away. And I was like, and I'm like, now I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I got to take the knowledge I can from all different people. It's like, so I
Yeah.
honestly, after this, I'm gonna go through your Instagram and try something. Maybe go upside down, do something because I actually went through a breakup like 2 weeks ago, and it's like I need to tap into like these methods to make myself feel better, put a smile on my face, breathe, all of these things, have conversations. But I guess a final question would be what current yoga positions are you trying to master? I see you doing some insane one-handed like awesome stuff. Like people definitely should check out your Instagram. But what are you trying to master right now?
And you're talking purely like asana, like pose wise?
Sure.
Yeah, because I was gonna say the hardest parts of yoga are not physical. So I'm definitely trying to master those. I can give a fuck less about my physical practice if I'm being honest. If
So
I could
explain
like
what you mean. What's harder, the mental part?
yeah, so in yoga, like you can talk about like the eightfold path. Like there's a lot of like limbs of yoga, right? Um Asana, physical postures, is only one limb of eight. So it's like most of the time when you talk to people, it's like, oh, yoga. It's like these poses, right? Like all these poses. Like they just know it for that limb. Like, nah, it's actually, being a person internally, externally, like breath work, concentration, and your asana, meditation, and then like a lot of things to like you get to that final, the goal is like samadhi, right? Like into eternal bliss in the crown chakra. That's the goal, right? Living a blissful life. Can't really argue against that. So that's what the whole yoga path is all about. Asana is just one limb. So
Asana?
asana means pose in Sanskrit.
Okay.
So
Okay.
all the poses. So you're asking me what is the pose I'm trying to master? That's why
Sure.
I reiterated. I'm like, are you talking about the physical pose? Because I probably mastered the asana realm more than any other realm. So I'm trying to master the other realms. You get what I'm saying?
I do. Man, that's
And at
interesting.
the end of the day, it's just like the simplest asanas. The asana, it's the third of eight limbs, just so you know, and it's all about just keeping the body functioning well. Because like, how are you going to meditate and be blissful in your mind if your back's all fucked up, you can't walk, you're not physically adapted to this world? Nah, you're not gonna have a good life. You're not physically adapt. Yeah. So, anyways, back to your question. I hope that makes sense. Just to
It
give you a
really
little.
does. Man.
Yeah. So within that third limb that you're talking about, asanas, which one I'm trying to master? It's funny you asked that. I've been working on my one-handed handstand for like 4 years now. I would say 4 years. I'm just now clicking and I'm getting like 10 to 15 second holds to where I'm catching myself like both ways, forward, back, and right, left. Like it's hard, man. When you don't have two hands helping you, you gotta worry about right, left, not just falling over top and back to your chest. So it's like it just makes it 100 times harder. And if you're in your handstand journey and you've ever tried to get on one hand, you know exactly how hard it is. But in terms of postures, that is the one posture like it takes. And I know when I'm on top of my like focus, my everything, my stillness, that is a pose where it's so freaking hard to where I would know how tapped in I am that day. Does that make sense? Because if I'm just falling down right away, or I'm like hesitant, like the shakiness, like that means my breath is not on point. Because like everything needs to be on point. Because for instance, if you're in a regular handstand, you can kind of fuck up your breath. You can kind of mess up a lot. Like you can kind of like not be that there, and I can still hold it. If that's only because I've been doing this for years. If you're just now starting your handstands, that is like it's full concentration. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to downplay that. Handstands are hard. But then when you go to one, it's like there's no room for error almost, to where if you are having a lot of error, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm not focused today. Like, oh yeah, my breath is shit right now. Like, oh yeah, like I haven't done much. Like I did shoulders yesterday, or you just tapped in. You know why your body's like a little bit sore. Like I don't know, it just taps you in. And again, yoga is all about connection, right? So yeah, a one-handed handstand that can be an asana too, but it's not a traditional asana. You know what I mean? But we can do whatever the fuck we want with our bodies and call it an asana. You know what I mean? It's just like most asanas are taken from nature. First of all, you know, you got like tree pose, you got stuff like this, like resembling plants, and you got up dog, down dog, Sphinx pose, resembling cats and dogs. Like all these poses are mostly nature poses, to where we stole them from nature because Mother Earth knows best. Like Cinnamon, she's so tapped in. My dog right here, she's so tapped in. She's so woke. Like she didn't have to read no books. She just knows it. She knows these stretching poses. She knows the best stretch. She doesn't need to like read read about the benefits of up dog. She's going to do up dog every time she wakes up. She's going to stretch out her hips, her hip flexors, open up her heart, reach your chin forward, like, oh.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a person who actually did like 10 years of gymnastics, so I have quite a bit of handstand experience. So I'm gonna have to tap into this, and I could see how it's like if you're in a bad mood or something, you're not dealing with something emotionally, and then you're trying to like get on that balance of one hand. It's like there's no way you're gonna do it. You have to really kind of flush out what's messing with you, what's messing up your polarity, as you would say. And I I really like this because I never even thought of yoga really as much. I always thought of just the poses. So this has truly opened my mind to it's like a lifestyle. It's like every single action you take, every attitude you have, and you know, just your mental and spiritual almost self. Like, how are you as a person? Where's your energy going? Are you aligned as a person? And I love that a lot.
Yeah, dude, you're more of a yogi than you think. I'm telling you. Like, yeah, a lot of it's just being mindful. You know, you get back to the wishy-washy. It's like, oh, just be mindful. It's like, no, like that literally is just it. It's just like be mindful and intentional with everything you do. Like this conversation right now, I've had so many conversations with people asking me the same question. I'm gonna try to answer it every time in a different way. I'm like trying to explain a different way. I'm trying to challenge myself in explaining. What I'm getting at is that I don't want this to be habitual. What I'm doing to you right now could be very easily be habitual because I've done it as a habit. You know, people ask me these questions all the time, but no, it's going to be a ritual because I'm giving intent to it. So where there's intent, there could be a ritual. Where there's not intent, it will be a habit. You do not want to be a habitual creature because we're already habitual creatures. 99% of our day is planned out, right? Above our head. Like Tony Robbins goes deep into this stuff too. So we're literally creatures of habit to where we need to make sure most of our habits that we're going to do every day, we need to make them rituals because you're going to do them every day. Like, when's the last time you brushed your teeth? You're mindful, like, of actually what you're doing. I do it every morning because I'm brushing with my left hand. So that's another way to shock your system right away. I don't brush with my right hand in the morning, brush with my left. And that wakes me up right away. Whenever I'm using my left, I'm like trying to tap into like using different muscles of my arm. Just so mindful. A practice that wasn't, who has a mindful practice of brushing their teeth? Not too many people. I wish everyone would. Maybe
That's
after this,
smart. That's very
people,
smart. I'm gonna do the same thing now.
but everything, man. Like I'm still not perfect, of course. I'm trying to do it more and more, but I'm getting really good at it with my gym, with like certain things, like small things like brushing teeth, but like the big things like working out every day, your flows, your yoga flows, your practice, or your work that you're doing at your desk. Like make it mindful, because then if it's not, you're just an habitual creature, like being a zombie. No one listening to this right now wants to be that. So just whenever you can, make your habits a ritual. And that comes from placing intention to it. So back to what I was saying with this conversation, full intention is here when it could be a habit, me answering your questions that you asked.
Yeah, I
So
can
that's
totally
yoga.
tell.
That's
Yeah,
yoga.
man, that's awesome. Yeah, because like when the word ritual almost even gives like this, high value status. It's like brushing my teeth is a ritual. I actually give it a lot of value because it's important. It helps me wake up. It helps me tap into the right side of my brain.
Yeah.
It's like, raising it to a high importance instead of, oh, I have a call. I have to just answer some questions. It's like, no, I have a call where I'm going to enlighten someone and open their mind to the beauty
Oh
of
yeah.
yoga.
Millions of people are going to see these clips of this. I know that. So it's like, that's another thing that's helped, I guess. So 3 years ago, I was still in this practice of making rituals, not habits, right? I've been on that kick for like years now. But recently, now that I know, this sounds so corny, but with like great power comes great responsibility, that whole saying. I have a lot of people that can see my shit now, way more than I ever imagined 3 years ago. So it's a completely different reality to where it's very easy to make it a ritual now with some of these things. It's like, oh my god, a million people could see this. Before I was like, video, I'll get 300 views no matter what, whatever. It's like, it's like less, and that's bad. I should have still been intentional as I am now. I should have been it then, but it's harder. You know what I mean? But I'm being honest. I wasn't as intentional. But now, like, you got people waiting to see your shit. It's like, oh god, one of these clips can get, easily 250,000 views. Now I wouldn't even think anything of it. But so like, I want to be so much more impactful with every word I say. It's even more important now. So I can't be living in a habitual state, or else I will be failing, as I'll be failing to my community.
No, that's true.
Makes
And to
sense?
yourself.
Oh, big time. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I think that's a perfect place to end it. You said you're on a time limit, and I think that was a great discussion.
Yes. No, this is a great talk, man. You sure you don't got one more question or any more?
Let's see. What about hot yoga? Like getting in a hot temperature, sweating. I hear things about hot yoga. What's your opinion?
Hot yoga is great for the nervous system. So again, it's all a nervous system game, right? We're trying to change state. What hot yoga can do, it can do everything regular yoga does for you, but that extra sense of warmth and heat to your body not only helps your physical body, reach deeper states, but it helps your mental reach deeper states too. So that will put you in more of a stress mode. So what we do, especially if you're doing a power flow and it's hot, you're going to be stressing your body out. If it's your first time, you might get a little claustrophobic. You might get a little like, oof, but no, like you breathing through that, you like keeping your breath slow, you can catch up your breath every once in a while. But usually say you're doing a flow class, you're inhaling 5 seconds, exhaling 5 seconds. Inhale, like it's a constant inhale and exhale on a rhythm to where there's some points, and if you do a lot of yoga flow, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You hit a point where you're like, like you got to catch up. Like you're feeling like you're just behind on your breath, and you need to just fuck this instructor, his count. I need to take a second to myself, like just get your own breath count. But if you get past that state and you don't, but what you do is like, a good teacher will let you know, like, because you're breathing through your nose too, only through your nose. So usually it's like you got to catch up with like breathing through your mouth, like, so a good teacher will let you know, like every once in a while, exhale out your mouth, like, let it go, because that's what your body actually wants. Your body wants to release carbon dioxide that's being built up at an extra sped up rate. Because even moving, you're building up carbon dioxide. That's what you breathe out, right? It's our body expelling it. If you're only breathing through your nose, your body is like building that up. So your body wants to breathe out the mouth, but you keep your breath count. So you breathe out your mouth, you keep the breath count. So you do all this glorious stuff and all this like kind of torture low key. But what it does is it helps your nervous system. So now like your nervous system is much more capable of adapting to a lot of obviously heat therapy, claustrophobic, you're like all these things, like because you be in these poses where you're all curled up, you're like not being able to breathe like you want to, like so many things you can get past, and most of them are mental. Because if you just don't freak out up here, it's okay. Like you're actually okay. But you get in a state to where you're like, you're low key wanting to freak out. And me, after years of practice, I still get in the state sometimes. Like, you know what I mean? But you get past it and you're like, oh yeah, you're a little bit stronger. Just a little bit. But that makes sense. So hot yoga at the end of the day, so many benefits. Same as the regular yoga, but it's going to add in a little bit more of you being able to cope with stress better.
That's interesting. Yeah, because that reminds me of the sauna, which is really amazing for stress reduction and maybe even stretching and,
Daily,
helps your
bro.
mind a ton. Yeah, I hit the sauna daily as well.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, I'm gonna have to add some of these practices into my inventory because I intermittent fast, I hit the workout every day, I sauna, I cold plunge, but I need to hit some yoga. What am I doing? I need to breath work more. Man, I haven't tapped into these enough, but I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen, and I really appreciate what you do because without seeing your page, I might not have noticed the importance of all of this, and so I really thank you.
Dude, you're so welcome, Harley. Again, as I started this conversation out, like the main benefits from all these practices come from the simplest principles and simplest exercises within each practice. Like the simplest breath work, the simplest yoga poses, they're going to give you the best benefits. You know what I mean? But as you build your own practice, for whoever's listening out there, like as you build your practice, then you can get to nitty gritty. Then you can get fancy with it. Like, don't worry about that. Like, so you saying you need to start doing more yoga? Keep it simple, man.
Will do. I will definitely.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
thanks so much, Dakota. It's been a true pleasure.
Oh yeah, Harley. Until next time, I'm sure we'll do this again.
Yeah, we will.
All
Some
right, bye.
maybe in person. We'll see.
Exactly.